So now we're going to demonstrate JAWS with ELA for a Braille student. So Veronica here is my lovely Braille student that I'm going to be administering this test to. So I'm on the sheet called Logging Onto the Practice Test. Now, there are three options in which you can use the practice test. The first one is practice test using a TA login and SSID. So if you have your student and they already have an SSID, you can actually log in with your information and their information. The second option is the practice test using the TA login and guest user. So this requires a TA computer and a student computer and allows the TA to emboss the questions just like the first option does. And the third option is if your student just is very ambitious and wants to practice on his or her own, they can do the training test, and that only requires a student computer, but they can't emboss. So because Veronica is not a real student, we are going to go with the guest user option, the second option. So this will be practice test using the TA login and guest user. Okay. So on the TA side, I am going to open a browser. In this case, I'm going to be using Internet Explorer. You can use Firefox or Chrome. Just to note that whenever you download something, where it shows up might be a little bit different depending on the browser. So I'm going to go to www.CAASPP.org, and I'm going to select Practice and Training Tests. Okay, so it takes us here, and we're going to go on the left side and click Test Administrator and Test Examiner Practice and Training Site, and it's going to open a new tab. Here is where you log in with your credentials and type in your password and click Secure Login. So if this is the first time that you're logging in here, you may get a pop-up alert, and you may need to allow pop-ups for, and the location of that will depending on the browser that you're using. It may pop up on the top right-hand corner. You might need to allow pop-ups. Previously, we have allowed pop-ups, so we didn't have to do that. And here we're going to select Smarter Balanced Practice Test. We are doing ELA, and we are doing the Computer Adaptive Test. And for this exercise, we'll be doing grade 6. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and start the practice session. Now you'll see that I'm presented with the practice session ID at the top, and it starts with train. And this is the session ID that you would need on the student computer in order to connect the two. So here on the student computer, I'm switching over. On Veronica's computer, I've already made sure that JAWS is running. My Braille display is working. And you need to make sure that all of your settings are set to how you need it, because once you open the secure browser, you're not going to be able to change the settings without closing the secure browser. Then you're going to have to log back on. So just make sure all of these settings are set ahead of time. Even though that this is the student's computer, I'm actually going to get her to the point where she starts the test, because it's already very stressful for the student and for them to try to navigate logging on and typing in their password and things like that. It's very stressful for them. So I'm going to go ahead and remove some of that stress and just get her up to the point where she can just take the test. So here on this sheet, I am now on step number 12. So start JAWS or Zoom Text and adjust necessary settings. I've done that. Okay, now I'm going to open the secure browser.
Desktop, folder view, list view, secure browser, 3 of 15. To move to items, use the arrow keys.
Okay, here, I'm not going to type in my first name or SSID. I'm going to go to the bottom here, and I'm going to click Go to the Practice and Training site, because we're just practicing. On the day of the test, you're going to go ahead and fill in the first name and SSID here. But we are practicing today, so number 14,
click here to go to the Practice and Training Test site link. Student.
Okay, and this is a little tricky. It says we have to uncheck the guest session box, because when you uncheck it, it's going to allow me to type in the session ID. If this is checked, I can't type into the session ID. You see it's grayed out. So I'm going to uncheck this.
Session checkbox.
And now,
Session ID part 1.
and I'm going to click into the session ID, and I'm going to go ahead and type the practice session ID that was there.
There are no complementary. There are no radio buttons on this page.
Okay, so now it's kind of giving me an error. I typed TRA and it's saying something. I'm not sure. So what that is, it means that it's not in forms mode, and a lot of people get confused here because I clicked in there because I'm a sighted user, but it didn't enable forms mode. And so when I'm pressing T, JAWS is thinking that I'm looking for tables. And so what I need to do is I need to enable forms mode, and I'm going to do that by pressing E to get to an edit box.
Grab the top. Session ID part 1 edit.
And then press spacebar.
Space.
So the key there is you hear the little bloop sound, and now I know that I'm in forms mode and I'm ready to type. So if you get into that, that is why. You need to make sure that you're in forms mode. So the session ID is
TRAIN.
train.
Train 8. 3. E. 7. 82. 5.
Okay, and just to note that your session ID is going to be a different number. This is just the sample session ID that we have going on right now. I'm going to click sign in.
25. Please wait. Dialog. Page.
And then the grade
Select
level we
grade,
chose
1 of
was
11.
6.
Student call.
Click yes.
Please wait. Dialog. Student : login. Student : login your test.
Okay, so now it's waiting for approval. The student, I did everything here. Now on switching back to the TA computer, I'm gonna click refresh. Oh, before I even clicked refresh, it came up. You see this? Approvals, and then now it has this red number 1. I'm gonna click in there, and it's gonna say the guest student. Here, I need to make sure that this student is set up for Braille, and this is very important. So I'm going to click this icon, and before I even start reading, I need to make sure that this presentation is not in English. It needs to be in Braille, because once I select Braille, it's going to give me additional options. So before I even try to go through what was above that, I'm just going to go straight to Braille first, and now that I have that, I'm going to start from the top. Okay, expanded items off, and here I have a sheet that tells you exactly what we have to change. So I'm on the page that says Braille users instructions for ELA. This is under the logging onto the practice test. It's part of the page, and it'll tell you exactly what you need. So here it'll say presentation, Braille. I've already done that. I need to make sure that the mute system volume. Now this is a little counterintuitive, a little confusing, but your mute system volume you actually have to turn off. It means that you're allowing JAWS to read the items and the passages aloud. So I need to make sure that that's off, otherwise JAWS will not read. And embossed request type, on request or auto request for ELA. On request is fine, or auto request, it doesn't matter. And then I need to make sure that permissive mode is enabled. In permissive mode, I think Julie spoke about it earlier, permissive mode allows the student to use programs like non-built-in accommodations, so JAWS or any other items. Let's give this computer a second. Okay, permissive mode enabled. We already saw that the presentation is Braille. And here, streamline, we're gonna turn that on. Okay, so those are the settings that I need to make sure are correct. And then I'm gonna go ahead and set and approve. Okay, so that is what's done on the TA computer. After that process gets approved, on the student side, we're still waiting for approval. Oh, it came up. Okay, now we're switching over to the student computer. me as the teacher, I am going to check again to make sure all of these settings are correct. Permissive mode is enabled, Braille is on. Your Braille type, in this case, it's going to be uncontracted for Veronica. You can make this contracted or grade 2 if you'd like. And make sure that Streamline is on. Okay, so everything's good. I'm going to click yes.
Desktop, folder view lit.
Now it's going to ask me if I can hear this audio clip. I'm going to click that.
Play video button.
And I heard the sound, so I'm going to click I can play the video and sound.
Instructions and help heading left.
Instructions and help. And we're going to go ahead and begin.
Dialogue, student:, test document.
Okay, so all of that I did as the teacher because I want to make sure Veronica is in the best condition she is in to be able to take the test and not have to worry about all this whole login and navigating. And so now I'm going to hand over the computer to her, and I'm going to now switch over to the sheet called Navigating the Test with JAWS. And in this sheet, it talks about how to navigate this test and the different kind of landmark elements there are, or how to navigate headings or answer questions. So the first thing that, because this is a practice test and this is the first time that Veronica has seen this test, I'm going to tell her that there's 3 main regions on this test, and you can navigate the regions by pressing R. So Veronica, can you go ahead and type R?
Banner.
The banner region. So the banner region is at the top of the screen. It talks about the test information and the progress. Press R again.
Navigation region.
So navigation region, it includes the navigation tool buttons, back, next, save, etc.
Main region.
And R again, so that's the main region. Now the main region is where most of the test content is. It's the passages, the questions, and the answers. Okay, so if she wants to navigate, let's say she answered the question and she wants to go to the next one, she can press R until she gets to the navigation region and then click next. So we want to talk about how that page is structured. Okay, so if you want to jump headings, you can press H.
Passage title: heading level 2.
And so every heading level will say like heading level 1, heading level 2, and it'll read the heading of that area. And if that's what she wants to read, then she can just down arrow from there. If she wants to navigate buttons, she can press B. If she wants to navigate edit boxes, she can press E. Arrow keys to read, tab. So the basic navigation commands are here on that sheet. So similarly, if your student is not really a typist, but is really good at Braille and wants to use the Braille display to navigate, she can do the same thing too. So on the Braille display, she can type R.
Wrapping the top, banner.
And that goes to the banner region, R again.
Navigation region.
Or let's say if you want to go to the headings, you can press H.
Passage title:
And so she can navigate the same way instead of using the keyboard, and she's actually brailing it using the Braille display. So that's an option. So on the second page, it says Braille display navigation commands. It tells you what all of those commands are as well on the Braille display. Okay, so let's go ahead and start on this test. Let's go to regions, to the main region, because that's where the passage is.
Required : question number 1, heading level 3. Wrapping the top, banner.
Okay, keep going.
Navigation region. Main region.
Main region. Okay, and then let's press H for heading.
Passage title: heading level 2.
Okay, and then down arrow to read.
Read the text and answer the questions. Lang. Eureka.
Eureka! They must have known that I was going to be presenting on this. Okay, so she's going to use her navigation commands to read. The other option is that she can use the Braille display and progress the Braille. So if she's a very good Braille reader, she can just keep reading and reading, and she doesn't actually have to navigate using the computer and have JAWS read. So she's going to read all the way down, and then let's say we want to go to the question. So go ahead and press H to get to the question.
Required : question number 1, heading level 3.
Okay, so what's a little bit tricky is if you heard it, it says required question number 1, heading level 3. visually, it doesn't really take us there. And that's okay, because it's not about us, what's being demonstrated on the screen. It's as long as Veronica is able to read what's on the screen. But for the purposes, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, I'm going to scroll it down. So she's here, where it says question number 1. And let's go ahead and press the down arrow and read what it says.
Menu button, menu.
So the menu button are the three bars on the right-hand side. And if she wanted to select that, she could press enter or spacebar, but it's not necessary for the student to do so.
Group start, select text. Click on the 2 sentences that best support the conclusion that Archimedes is very observant.
Okay, so this is an interesting question because it says click on the 2 sentences. But how is she supposed to click if she's using the arrow keys, right? So this is where Braille display is absolutely important and necessary for a Braille reader to take the test. She will have to read it using her Braille display, and whatever item she selects, she can route the cursor there to select that sentence. So go ahead and use your either.
A. There was in the king's court a very wise man whose name was Archimedes. Checkbox not checked. Blank. B. When he was called in to admire the king's crown, he turned it over many times and examined it very closely. Checkbox not checked.
So she's
When
gonna.
he was called in to admire the
So what she did was she read it on her Braille display, and then she routed the cursor. The other option is, I think you'd be able to press enter on that sentence as well.
C. Left quote true, right quote said Archimedes. Left quote, but it does not appear to have the same rich red color that it had in the lump ... Right quote, checkbox not checked. Enter. Left quote true,
Okay.
right quote.
So Veronica, at that time, she pressed enter on the Braille display, which also selected. So there's several ways to select. She can also press enter or spacebar on the keyboard to select that line. Okay, and then so now she's going to go to the next question, and to quickly jump to the next question, she can press H for heading.
Required colon question number 2 heading level 3.
Okay, and then down arrow to read.
Menu button menu. Blank. Which sentence best summarizes a central idea of the text? Blank. Group start multiple choice. Radio button not checked. Tricking a king can be dangerous. 1 of 4.
Okay, so now this is a radio button. So we have a sheet called selecting a radio button. And this, let's see, if she wants to do it on JAWS commands on the keyboard, she can just down arrow, and she can press the space bar to select.
Radio button not checked. Creating a beautiful object is challenging. 2 of 4. Radio button not checked. Problems can be solved in unusual ways. 3 of 4. Radio button not checked. Kings can solve problems as cleverly as ordinary people. 4 of 4. Space. Kings
So
can
here,
solve.
she pressed the space bar to select. The other option, if she's reading on the Braille display, she can just route the cursor and select that option as well. Okay, so let's go ahead to question number 3.
Required colon question number 3 heading level
I'm going to
3.
go ahead and skip number 3 because it's also a radio button.
Tab. Menu button. Tab. Majority rate space.
Okay, and then, so I'm skipping number 3 because it's another radio button, and I want to go to number 4, so let's go ahead and press H,
H.
or tab.
Escape. Virtual PC cursor. Required colon question number 4 heading level 3.
Down.
So to get out of forms mode, I pressed escape so that I could navigate the web page again.
Menu button menu. Blank. Summarize what happens after Archimedes sees his bathwater overflowing. Use key events from the text to support your summary. Blank. Type your response.
Okay, so number 4 is typing in a text box, which you can refer to this sheet, typing in a text box. Veronica was navigating using the down arrow, and so it read, summarize what happens, and she pressed down arrow again, but we're not at this point allowed to type because we're not in forms mode. So what she has to do is press enter or spacebar to kick it into forms mode.
Space. Type your
And
response.
we
Heading
heard that-
required.
we
Type a
heard-
text.
The little beep, so now we know that you can type in a response versus giving JAWS a navigational command. So go ahead and type something.
H-I. I exclaim.
Okay, and now she's done, so she can press tab to get out of that.
Tab. Required colon question
And then
number.
it goes on to question number 5. So I think that kind of gives you an idea of how to navigate the test efficiently. If you ever want to go back, you can do Shift H and that goes to the previous heading. Or you can always press Control Home and that'll get you to the very top of the page and then navigate down that way. So I think next, there's also some other question types, such as controlling a sound clip. We have a sheet for selecting checkboxes and selecting sentences and words within a paragraph. And so those are the different question types that you may come across, of which we have a sheet for each one of those. So that's ELA with JAWS, and next we're going to be doing math with JAWS.